thank you so much for joining us today for this Donorbox webinar. Again, my name is Jenna, and I am the brand ambassador for Donorbox, and I'm also going to be moderating this conversation today. For those of you who are not familiar with Donorbox, we provide nonprofits with simple and effective tools to manage their online fundraising activities and connect with individual donors on a deeper level. To date, we have helped over 35,000 organizations across the globe raise over $700 million. So to learn more, you can visit us on our site at donorbox.org. And today we are joined by Grant Hensel to talk about how you can increase your online donations for your nonprofit using Google Ad Grants. This is a great opportunity. Now, Grant is the CEO of nonprofit Megaphone, which is an organization 100% focused on Google Ad Grant management for nonprofits, and is honored to serve over 450 clients. So we are in great hands today. Now, before I pass the baton over to Grant, I want to mention just a couple of items. Please note that this webinar presentation will be about 45 minutes long, with an additional 10 minutes allotted at the end for Q&A. Don't worry, this webinar is being recorded, and all registrants will receive a link to that recording and the slide deck after the webinar. We have you covered. Now, you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen that you have a chat box. I think most of you have found it already. Please utilize the chat box to drop in any questions you may have about the Google Ad Grant throughout the presentation, and we will be behind the scenes marking your questions for the Q&A so that we can answer as many as we can. We will also be sharing several helpful links throughout the presentation, and those will pop up in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So as those links appear, you can click them and they will open right up. All right, without further ado, Grant, I'm gonna go ahead and let you take it away. Everybody give Grant a warm welcome.
Wonderful, thank you. Welcome everyone, so excited for this. Everyone, I'm just going to get the joke out of the way. My name is Grant, and I have devoted my life to the Google Ad Grant. So it's out of the way, and excited to dive in and hopefully share a lot of information that will be helpful for everyone's organizations. As we begin, just to get a sense of who we have together with us today, we're going to do a quick poll. So how familiar are you with the Google Ad Grant? And I believe a poll will pop up that you can answer. Okay, we got answers coming in. Okay, looks like so far the vast majority of people have never used it. Some have and are just getting started. One person has for some time. 3 people used to. Okay, good to know. This is great. This is fantastic. Okay, yes, and we have our second question. So we have both how familiar are you and are you using it? So these are going to be pretty correlated, I would imagine. Okay, most people somewhere between not at all familiar and not very familiar. Some are somewhat familiar. Fantastic. Okay, this is going to be great. We are going to, for everyone who has not used it and is not at all familiar or not very familiar, we're going to give you a really thorough grounding in what it is and how it all works. And for those of you who are a little bit more familiar, we'll give you some more advanced things that you can be working on and thinking about. So excellent, very helpful. Thank you for that. Okay, so to jump off, let's give a really quick overview of what the Google Grant is, and in broad strokes, how can it help nonprofit organizations like your own. The Google Ad Grant is a program through Google that's actually been around for over a decade now, that gives nonprofit organizations $10,000 a month to spend on ads in Google search. And every nonprofit that is in the United States that's a 501c3 and is not a hospital or school is eligible. And there are similar eligibility rules for dozens of other countries where you can also obtain the Google Ad Grant as well. And so essentially it is free credit that you can use to run ads in Google search and reach people who are searching for the types of things that your organization does. And we'll look at a few examples here. These are all taken from our clients. So one of our clients is an organization called COPD Foundation, and COPD is a respiratory ailment, and they help with research and community and so forth for that condition. And one of the resources that the COPD Foundation has on their website is a screener. It's a free online screening quiz that people can take to see if they're at risk for COPD. And so one of the cool things about the Google grant is that all of the ads are targeted based on keywords. You can see that this person typed into the search box, "Do I have COPD?" And we'd call that the keyword, or the keywords that they use, "Do I have COPD?" And this ad, this "Do you have COPD? Take our screener today," is triggered. We wrote this ad and it's tied to this keyword and other keywords like it. And the cool thing about this is that instead of targeting based on demographics, which is how you're typically targeting on Facebook or Instagram or banner ads, you can target based on intent. So this person, could be someone of any set of demographics, and you don't even necessarily care. What you do know is that this person right now in this moment is thinking about COPD and thinking about whether or not they have it. And so that's a perfect person to reach. When someone clicks on this link, the "Do you have COPD" link, it will take them to the COPD Foundation's website and to that specific page with the screening tool. And they'll be able to fill out the screener. Actually, hundreds of people each month click on this exact ad and fill out this exact screening tool. And it's very cool. As a marketer, it's very cool to have potentially life-changing things being promoted by ads. So that's one example of how the Google Ad Grant can be really effective. Another thing that we like to mention is that you can promote multiple websites as long as your nonprofit owns them. So Rotary International is another client. They have a main website, rotary.org, but they also have a website, endpolio.org, which is for their polio eradication campaign. And as long as your nonprofit owns the website and owns the URL, you can also promote that as well, which is very cool. You can't promote websites that you don't own. So you couldn't promote like your YouTube page or things like that, but anything that you own, you can promote. You just have to, you fill out a form and you get approval for it, but it's pretty easy. Another really cool way that the Google Ad Grant can be used is to take advantage of trends in the news. A number of years ago, this is in the United States, so maybe not as relevant to our international audience, but in the United States a few years ago, former President George H.W. Bush passed away. And it became public knowledge that he was accompanied by a service dog in his last days, and that service dog's name was Sully. And so a lot of people started searching for who is this service dog, what's Sully's story, and this organization, America's Vet Dogs, trained Sully the service dog. And so they made a page on their website all about Sully and the impact that he'd made, about the work that the organization is doing. It included calls to action where people could volunteer or request more information. And by using the Google grant, they were able to get this page in front of all these people that were researching Sully and get a lot of traffic there. And this is cool because normally, if you're like a for-profit, you can either pay for ads, which get you to the top really quickly, or you can sort of optimize your pages for organic search results, which are the non-ads down here, which just takes a long time. And the nice thing is if you're a Google grant recipient and you're a nonprofit, you get the best of both worlds. You can have your results at the top really quickly and without spending your own money, which is really quite nice. So those are some examples. We'll jump a little bit more into eligibility because you're probably thinking, okay, this sounds great. Can I get it? As mentioned, in the United States, and the requirements are equivalent throughout the world, it's just the terminology about the tax status will be different. But in the United States, as long as you're a 501c3 nonprofit, so specifically a C3, and you're not a hospital, a school, or a government agency, you are eligible for the Google grant. And as long as you do the application correctly, and you're like a legitimate organization, you will be approved, which is really cool. This is the process. And again, these slides will be distributed, so don't feel like you need to memorize this flow chart, but I'll just provide a really quick overview just for everyone's knowledge so that you're familiar with it. It's essentially a 3-step process. You need to be a member of Google for Nonprofits. which you can, if you just Google for nonprofits, you'll come to that page. And if you're not already, it's a free account. Google will need to verify your nonprofit status, and it does that through an organization called TechSoup. TechSoup is in the United States and a number of other countries. Some countries have a different analog to TechSoup, but there will be some kind of verification organization, which many nonprofits already have an account with. But if you don't, you can create a free account with TechSoup. That will give you a validation token, which is almost like a one-time password. You'll take that validation token, you'll put it into Google for Nonprofits, which will activate your Google for Nonprofits account. And then you'll just need to make sure that you have Google Analytics and some kind of conversion tracking set up on your website. And we'll talk about this more in detail down the road later in the presentation. And then once that's ready, you can apply for the Google grant from your Google for Nonprofits account. And it'll normally take a few days. And as long as you've done everything correctly, you'll get a wonderful email that will say, congratulations, you are approved for the Google grant, which is awesome. And yeah, it's not like a traditional grant where there's a limited number of slots. You just have to do the process right. So as long as you do everything right and you fulfill the eligibility criteria, you will be awarded the grant, which is wonderful. We've helped hundreds of organizations get it. We have a 100% success rate. So that is good. And then we can look at a few examples of ways that different organizations can use the Google grant to impact their missions. So one classic example is driving awareness. So this is a human services organization, Penmar Human Services, which uses the Google grant to reach people who their services could help support. So in this case, people who are or have family members with intellectual disabilities. And that's a great way to use the Google grant because those types of folks will be Googling things related to those topics. Penmar Human Services can show ads sharing how they can help. Another classic example is selling tickets. So if you're a symphony, if you're an orchestra, if you're any kind of performing arts organization, a theater, selling tickets is a great way to both, share your artistic accomplishments with your community and also fund your revenue model. Sharing thought leadership is another great example. UNCF is a cool organization which gives out like millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in scholarships to students at HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. And they do a really nice job of sharing the opportunities that they have for students and also the impact that HBCUs are making economically and socially, which is fantastic. You can also promote events, and this is kind of a double capability here. You can promote your own events. Many times there are events like 5Ks that people just are randomly searching for. So like 5Ks this weekend. That's a great way to promote your 5K using a keyword like that. And you can also, Wellfield Botanic Gardens uses the grant to promote both their events and also the fact that people can use their venue for their own events, like for weddings or other things like that, which is cool. Engaging donors is another a great way to use the grant. This requires some creativity. Most people, unfortunately, are not Googling, I have too much money and I need to get rid of it. But they might be Googling things like donate refrigerator or things like that, donate refrigerator free pickup. And this is exactly what Habitat for Humanity does, is they have a restore where they accept donations of household items. They will actually come pick it up for free. They'll clean them up and they'll sell them in their restore to fulfill or to fund Habitat for Humanity's mission. They've used this really effectively to drive like tens of thousands of dollars in in-kind donations each month. And we'll talk more about ways that you can use the Google grant to eventually cultivate donor relationships as well later on. And then finally, attracting visitors. If you have a physical location, you're an aquarium, you're a zoo, you're a museum, you're a venue of some kind, the Google grant is a great way to reach people who are looking for that or looking for things to do, and so forth. So just a few examples, and there are hundreds more. We have 450 clients. Each of them has slightly different goals for how they're using the grant. Some are really focused on building an email list, which is actually a great thing to do. Others are focused on driving like adoptions of animals, and the list goes on and on. Okay, so we are now that we have sort of a high level sense of what the Google grant is and how it all works, we're going to dive into more of the details in terms of how the account is actually structured. So there are 3 levels of structure. There's campaigns, there's ad groups, and then there's ads. Campaign is the highest level, and campaigns are almost like thematic buckets that you can use to organize the account. So in this example, we'll pretend that we are a humane society, and one of our goals is getting animals adopted. So we're definitely going to have a campaign about adopting animals. We might have other campaigns about volunteering or about events that we have or about other things, but we're almost definitely going to have an Adopt Animals campaign. Within that campaign, we will have multiple ad groups. And ad groups are groups of tightly clustered keywords that are all very similar to each other. And they're designed to align on one intent. So someone who Googles something related to adopt a dog, they have a different idea in mind than someone who Googles adopt a cat. And so we want to reach those people separately. And keyword examples would be like adopt dogs, adoptable dogs near me, dog adoption, and same with cats. You can just think of all the different things that people might search where their intention is, I would like to adopt a dog or a cat or some other animal. And then within each ad group, you have multiple ads. And these ads will be very tightly tied optimally to the keywords. So for the dog adoption ad group, you would want to have the headlines in the ads be all about like adopt a dog, dogs available for adoption, adopt a loving dog today, something like that. And the same with cats. And the reason for that is that if someone Googles adopt a dog and your ad says adopt a dog, find your adoptable dog today or something like that, people's brains subconsciously think, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. And they'll click on it because they think this is going to answer my question and give me what I want. And someone, who is searching for cats does not want to see an ad about dogs. They want to see an ad about cats and so forth. And as your account becomes more mature, you will have more and more campaigns and more ad groups. So maybe this is a younger account. You have a couple campaigns and each campaign has a couple ad groups. And as the account becomes increasingly mature, you could have many campaigns, and especially you'll have many ad groups. We have clients that we've been working with for like years, like 4 or 5 years now, and some of them have over 100 ad groups, all of which are specifically targeting a small and tightly clustered group of keywords and have a very relevant ad. One of the ways that we think about this is that if you think about all the things that people are searching for, you can almost imagine it's like a huge open field which has many ponds in it, little ponds of water. And some of the ponds are really big and some of the ponds are really small. And each of those ponds represent the different things that people are looking for in Google. And you can think about, like, for simplicity, let's just think about the things that they're looking for in Google that are relevant to what your organization does. Over time, what you want to do is have little fishing lines in the water in each of those ponds. And you want to have the fishing line have, like, to use this fishing metaphor, the appropriate bait, which is almost like the keywords in the ads. So if the keyword represents the pond, the right bait is having the right ad for that specific group of people who are looking for a specific thing. And over time, you want to have lines out in more and more ponds so that you're reaching more and more people who are all searching for specific things. And so that's why over time, your ads account will have lots and lots of ad groups. Okay, another quick poll for us, because we're going to start talking about how your website influences Google Ad Grant success. If you had to guess, how ready is your website to make the Google grant successful? And the poll is up. Let's see. Okay, more of an even distribution here. Looks like the leading answer so far is somewhat ready, with basically equal in very ready, not very ready, and I'm not sure. Yeah, when I started working with the Google grant like 5.5 years ago or whatever it was, I was very unsure of what makes a specific website successful, because we'd work with a wide variety of clients at the beginning. Some of them would be really successful with the ad grant and some would not be as successful. And we realized that the common thread was whether or not the organization had content on their website that people were looking for. And what that basically comes back to is reaching your audience where they're at. And so oftentimes organizations will have, if you look at a nonprofit's blog, maybe your own blog, since we've been doing the Google Ad Grant so much, we can look at a blog and see, okay, this topic is going to do really well. This post is going to do really well. This post is not going to do really well. And the way you can think about it is does this post answer a question that someone is likely to be searching for? So if the post says, why adopting a dog makes a difference, that is something that people are probably searching for. If the post says, see pictures from our latest fundraising event, unfortunately, no one is going to be searching for that. And the more promotable, we'd call the first page a promotable page because there are people searching for it. The more promotable pages your website has, the better you will do with the Google grant. And the way to think about this is to think about imagining your target audience, the person that you want to reach, and thinking about what types of questions are probably going through their mind. So to give an example with our Humane Society, someone who is considering adopting a dog, for example, might be thinking, is it expensive? How long does it take? Is there any animal shelters nearby? What do I need to do in advance to prepare? These are the types of questions that they're probably asking. And in a perfect world, you would have articles on your website that would answer each of these. So maybe you have a blog post that says the affordable cost of adopting a dog and talks about what it actually costs and maybe if there's support available or how that all works. Maybe another article explains the process. Another article explains what you can do to prepare. Another article, and you probably have a page on your website about this already, but that talks about hours and directions. And then once you have this content, you can use the Google Ad Grant to choose specific keywords that relate to these questions and have ads that relate to the questions, and then use the ads to send people to these specific pages. And this creates a really good experience. Someone's trying to figure out if adopting a dog is expensive. Boom, you answer their question. You give them the confidence they need that they know what they're getting into. And then hopefully you can encourage them to take the next step and actually come in and make an adoption. So this content is really what it's all about. And the reason for that is that Google is very concerned about making sure that it's a good experience for the searcher. And so if someone searches for, is adopting a dog expensive, and you write an ad that sends them to your homepage, for example, Google can tell that you're not answering the question. You're just sending someone to your homepage. And so Google's not going to show that ad as often through the Google Ad Grant. And so if we go back to our many ponds analogy, sometimes you can't effectively fish in a certain pond because there's not the right content on your website to serve as the appropriate bait, so, to sort of extend that analogy. And so this is why content is so important. Going back to this notion of what is a promotable page, when we look at a website, we're looking for 4 criteria. And if we want to count a page as being promotable. So the 4 criteria are a single topic, significant content, we'd say at least 300 words. More is better, but at least 300. A subject that people are searching for, which is the big one, and includes some kind of call to action. So it has some kind of next step that people can take to, if they're learning about how much it costs to adopt a dog, include a button that says, are you ready to adopt? Click here and keep people moving on. The reason that a single topic is so important is sometimes website pages will have many topics on them. And it's a confusing experience for a searcher if they are looking at, they're looking for the third one down the list. If they Google that, they click on an ad, and they see something else right at the top, they might just hit the back button instead of scrolling down to see what they are actually looking for. And so in a perfect world, you have a single topic. Significant content gives Google the confidence that you're actually answering the question and giving people what they want. And then a subject that people are searching for. Some subjects no one searches for. And most of the time you can intuit it. There are keyword research tools you can use, but most of the time you can kind of intuitively think are people going to be searching for that? And if no one's searching for it, you're fishing in a thimble as opposed to a large ocean. And you want to be fishing in a larger ocean. So that's a really quick summary. You can look through your website and basically just count the number of promotable pages that you have. And the more pages you have, the better set up you are to utilize the Google Ad Grant really well. It also is worthy of sort of jumping into the notion of high quality content. And this gets back a little bit to the idea of having enough content on the page. Google is looking for a good experience to be provided. So content being presented nicely, your website being mobile friendly. So the website showing up fine if it's on a mobile device or on a tablet or on a computer, including multimedia, like including videos and including transcripts of the videos, giving people the information they need. Google's actually paying attention to when people click on your ad and they go on to your site. How long do they spend there? Do they immediately hit the back button? And if they do, it kind of indicates it wasn't a great experience. But if they're scrolling and they're engaging with the content, they're watching videos, they're clicking to other pages, it suggests to Google that this is a really high value website and that it should show those ads more often. Okay, the other big thing, as we sort of mentioned, is conversions and having calls to action on each page that encourages people to take a next step. We'll talk about this a little bit in a second, but there are tools like Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager, which you can use to track when someone views a certain page, when they click a certain button, when they fill out a form, when they watch a video, when they click a link out to another site. And in a perfect world, you'd set up conversion tracking for each of the actions that you want people to take. So maybe like filling out the adoption request form, filling out the volunteer request form, donating, subscribing to your email newsletter, watching a video. All those types of things are valuable actions and are conversions. And in a perfect world, you'd make these conversion options, these call to actions, really visually prominent. So having buttons that stand out on the page that have a specific color that sets them apart from everything around them. That includes like action words like, click here, imperatives, and directs people to the things that you most want them to do. One of the cool things is that this data will actually get fed back into the Google Ad Grant algorithms, and Google will be able to see, oh, when we sent like 100 people clicked on the adopt a dog ads, and then they came to your website, and then 5 of those people actually filled out the like request a time slot to come in and adopt form. And that signals to Google, wow, this is really working. This ad is making an impact. It's causing people to take actual actions. Let's show that ad more, and let's bring more traffic to this organization because they've got something really good here. So conversions are massively helpful, both for you understanding how your ads are performing, and 2, for encouraging Google to bid more aggressively and show your ads more. Okay, here's an example. This is a client called Kennel to Couch. They help pit bulls get adopted. They're actually also a Donorbox client. And you'll see here that they have some calls to action on their homepage, which are related to donating. So they have a donate button here in the top right. And then they also have a sponsor a pit bull here button in the middle of the page. It's orange, so it's set apart. It's visually stands out from the rest of the page. It's really easy. People sort of understand what donate means. They understand what sponsor means. And that's fantastic. The other nice thing, if you're using Donorbox, is that the tools we mentioned for conversion tracking, so Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, are very easy to integrate. So Donorbox can be integrated with Google Analytics really simply, and that lets you track people who successfully donated. Most platforms surprisingly make this very hard or impossible. And so it's nice. If you're using Donorbox, it's very nice to be able to track that and like not have to worry about it, because that's an awesome conversion to be able to track how many people actually donated. And you'll be able to see it since it integrates with Google Analytics. You'll be able to see it not only for how many people donated from the Google Ad Grant, but also how many people donated coming from Facebook or from your email campaigns or from Google Organic Search or from anything else, which is really nice. Another really important thing to know about the Google Grant is that it's not set and forget. The Google Grant has rules called compliance rules that you have to follow, which we'll get into in a second. And one of those rules is you have to be making changes at least once a month, and ideally more often than that, so that your account continues to improve. For our clients, what we do is we're constantly creating new ad groups. We're testing new ads. We're testing new keywords. We're testing new landing pages, and just constantly improving the performance of the account, testing new conversion tracking. And And this is really important for maintaining and growing the impact of the account over time. Probably half of our clients come to us and they've never had the Google grant before, and we get it for them and we get them set up and we manage it so they don't have to worry about it. The other half have the Google grant and just don't have enough time to keep up with it, or don't have the interest, or they have other things going on. And so it's good to dedicate some time to have a person on the team who's responsible for that. This is another resource which you can access by going to nonprofitmegaphone.com/website rubric. And it's also in the resources right there. It's just popped up, which is really nice. And it is a free tool that you can use to assess your website's readiness for the Google grant. You don't have to put your email in or anything. You just fill out some questions and it'll generate a little answer at the bottom. And it's not going to be a surprise to you. It's all based on promotable content. And also the size of the audience that you're targeting. The bigger an audience you want to reach geographically, like if you want to reach a whole country, the Google Ad Grant is often a great way to do that, because there are going to be a lot of people searching for what you do. If you only want to reach like a specific town, you can still do it. We have organizations that are just targeting one county, and it still can be very effective for them. It just probably requires more content and more really diligent work and dedicated work. Okay, before we get into just everyone's Q&A, I want to answer a couple questions that we get very often. And one of those questions is, what types of organizations benefit the most? And there are three big categories that we think about. One, any nonprofit that needs to reach a large audience, certainly anyone national or international, targeting an international or national audience. If you have a mission that's widely applicable to many people, the Google grant is a very cost-effective way to reach a lot of people. And we would say it's probably going to be the best bang for your marketing buck in your entire marketing budget. If you work with someone like us to do it, or if you have someone internally do it, there'll be some cost, but it'll probably be really well paid for. Another class of nonprofit that does very well is anyone with a revenue model that benefits from exposure. So if you're like a community center, or like a YMCA or JCC that people can have memberships to, or you're a symphony, or you're a museum, you're a zoo, you're a Habitat for Humanity restore, anything like that tends to do well, because this is a great way to get more exposure, and it'll naturally help fuel your revenue model as well, even without people donating. And then finally, nonprofits that a lot of people are searching for. Animal organizations, a lot of people care about animals, and a lot of people search for things about animals. Advocacy organizations, a lot of people care about a wide variety of topics. Anything that's related to current events, or that often has a viewpoint on current events, will tend to do really well as well. And this is not a mutually exclusive list. We have one organization that we were actually talking about internally yesterday, who serves one county, one very specific thing, and they're doing incredible. They provide sort of like legal support services to senior citizens, and as a result of the Google grant, they've actually like doubled or tripled the number of inbound calls of people asking for help with various issues. And they've actually had to hire another receptionist to help handle all the call volume. And that's just one county. So it's definitely possible. It just takes more time to build up to that. Okay, and then going off of that, do most nonprofits spend the full $10,000 a month? And the answer is no. The vast majority do not. And it's not a great way to evaluate the success of your use of the Google grant. Many organizations can reach everyone in their target audience anytime they Google anything related to what you do, and it only costs $4,000 a month. And that's wonderful. It just means that as you expand, you'll have plenty of headroom to grow into with the Google grant. We'd encourage people to focus less on the spend and more on how many people are coming to your website and what are they doing once they get there? What are the conversions that are happening? What's the impact that's happening? So that's just like a really important thing to know. Another question I'll quickly answer on this is that, is it possible to spend more than the $10,000? And will I ever get charged real money? And the answer to both is no. You cannot spend more than $10,000. It essentially allocates $329 per day, and it'll spend that much and then stop. And there's no payment information in the account. So Google doesn't have your credit card, doesn't have your bank account has no way to charge you, and that's on purpose. You have $10,000 and that's it, and you'll never have to pay real money. You can create a second account, which does spend real money if you want to do like retargeting or YouTube ads, but the Google Ad Grant account, no real money is ever spent. Okay, another quick resource as well, and this I think we have a pop-up for also, or you can go to, there it is, nonprofitmegaphone.guide, or you can just click the handout. This is a like 20-page guide to the Google Ad Grant that covers everything we've talked about and also many other things. It goes through the compliance rules that you need to follow. It goes through everything. It has been updated for 2021, even though it says on the screen, that's my fault, 2020. This is a great resource to have. You can just download it and it will appear for you. Okay, so that's what we wanted to cover, and we'll jump into questions.
Okay, can you hear and see me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Grant, thank you so much for this amazingly informative presentation. Again, I came into this not knowing much about Google Ad Grants, and you really broke it down to something that's really digestible. And I hope that all of you in the audience are feeling inspired and feeling like you can take this on. With that being said, though, if you still have some more questions, and I see some more coming in, I want to announce that Nonprofit Megaphone is offering a free consultation to all of our attendees today. I saw some of you chatting about this in the chat box. So if you are interested, you can sign up using the form link that just appeared on the screen here, and we will get in touch with you. So we will make sure that you have all the resources and all of your questions answered. And again, with that ultimate guide, that will really help you walk through the process. So again, thank you, Grant. This has been awesome. Now, I know that we do have some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to my question chat so we can answer some of those for you. And we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, a question from Lily is, can you apply for this grant multiple times, or is it a one-time thing? How does that work?
Great question, and I should have clarified this. It's $10,000 a month forever. So you don't have to reapply for it every month as long as you're using it and you're following the Google Grant rules, like you're running ads that are relevant to your mission and so forth. And there's more about those rules in the ultimate guide. But as long as you're doing that, you will continue to receive the grant forever, basically.
That sounds too good to be true, but it is not. Thank you. That is awesome.
We've had clients that have had it for like over 10 years. It is, yeah.
Wow. That is great to know. All right. Now a question from Paula. Let me see if I can launch this here. Is this focus only for USA nonprofits, or what is the eligibility for folks out of the US?
Yes, if you go to google.com/grants, there's a list of all of the countries that nonprofits can be in and be eligible for it. I believe Ireland is one of them. There's dozens, and that'll give you the full list. And it'll also have, if there's any nuances on the application process for your country, it'll have them there as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And another, so you had talked about how you need to make changes every so often to keep the grant going. So can you elaborate more on what those changes look like? Is it with the ad grant? Is it on the website? Go into more detail for us.
Absolutely. The Google Grant requires that you do something in the ad grants account at least once a month. And so that could be like adding a keyword, adding a new ad, adding a new ad group, whatever you want it to be. You don't have to change your website, but I'd say that there's an opportunity to change your website. We'll often find for our clients that there are a lot of people searching for something that maybe the organization's website doesn't fully address. And in a perfect world, you'd create a new page on your website, and then you'd use the grant to promote that new page and bring even more people to your site. So you don't have to, but it's an opportunity.
Excellent, thank you. And let's see here, a question from Paul. So organizations need to be registered with the Charity Commission to be considered a bona fide charity in the UK. Is this something that Nonprofit Megaphone can help with?
I wish. So we are not lawyers. We cannot register you for you. But once you have your tax exempt status or your charity commission status, we can, for the clients that we work with, we go through the Google grant application process for them. So they just, most countries, there's a number. In the US, it's the EIN number. I think there's a equivalent in the UK, and we make the process happen from there, but we can't actually register you.
Thank you. And a question from Fiona here. Hi from London. That's awesome. So they are rebuilding their website. Is there anything to be mindful of so that it is optimized for Google Ad Grants? So I guess this is a great opportunity. You talked a little bit about what helps. So give us your favorite do's and don'ts on website optimization.
Absolutely. The biggest thing is the number of promotable pages using our promotable checklist from before that the new website will have. So I'm not sure what your mission is, but thinking through what are all the different topics that people probably care about? What are the questions that they have related to our mission? Make a list of like 10 or 20 of those if you're able to. And then in a perfect world, you'd have a page on the website, whether it's a blog post or just a normal page, that addresses each of those questions, that talks about how your organization is involved, that has some kind of call to action that shows how people can get involved themselves. And you will be far and away like above where most people are coming in. The only other thing is it's great to make sure that you have Google Analytics, and if you're able to, Google Tag Manager installed on the new site so that you can do all the conversion tracking.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. We have a lot of questions about eligibility. So this one is, what if you are a 501c3 that is classified as a hospital? Are you eligible?
So hospitals and schools and government agencies are the three groups that are not eligible. If you're a hospital foundation, or if your hospital does have a foundation that's also a 501c3, the foundation will be eligible, but the hospital itself, unfortunately, won't be.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. Now, an easy one. If you are already registered, how do you access the token?
Yes, so I'm guessing you're probably referring to the GuideStar token. If you go to google.com/grants or google.com/nonprofit, sorry, or grants, and you're logging into your Google for Nonprofits account or registering, it will ask for your GuideStar token, and there will be a link there that will say, get my token. And if you click that, it will take you to GuideStar, and that page should have the token, which you can then just copy and paste and put back into the Google for Nonprofits form and click submit, and it should work. Excellent.
Thank you for that question, and thank you for that answer. Now, another one, this is rapid fire. You are doing great, Grant. I have a question from Paul. So I like this question. Is there a limit to how long you've been registered as a charity before you can apply for the Google Ad Grant? Can you register today, apply tomorrow, for example?
So technically there's no limit. In the United States, the GuideStar is the organization that TechSoup actually uses. So Google verifies your nonprofit status through TechSoup. TechSoup verifies your nonprofit status through GuideStar. GuideStar verifies your nonprofit status through the IRS database. And so once you register, you've been given your tax exempt status. In the US, it gets published to the IRS database, then GuideStar updates, then TechSoup updates, and then you can get your Google for Nonprofits account. And so that can sometimes take time. There's a way to do it faster, which is that when you set up your GuideStar account, you can say, I just registered, here is my charity status determination letter, and that will do it more quickly. So you can do it, it won't be like instant, but you can do it quite quickly.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And that was a great question. Okay, I'm scrolling through here. This is an interesting question from Gary. We are grant funded, but we have not yet become a 501c3, but our fiscal agent is. We're going to be working towards becoming a 501c3. If our fiscal agent got the grant, could we both use it?
Yes. If your fiscal agent or fiscal sponsor, they're a 501c3, they can get the grant. They can then promote their website, and they could also add your website as an additional domain. Technically, they own the domain since you're fiscally sponsored by them. And so that absolutely works. The only caveat is that they can only get the grant once. So they would, if they sponsor multiple organizations such as yourself, you would all have to share one ad grant account. So sometimes that causes issues, sometimes it doesn't, but you absolutely can.
Excellent. And I'm scrolling through here. Again, we have a lot of questions about eligibility outside from other countries. So can you talk to folks about how they can easily find out their eligibility? I know we've talked about it a bit, but really make sure that everybody has that resource so they can go ahead and check and see if they are eligible.
Absolutely. The best resource is google.com/grants, and then there will be an eligibility section there, which will list each of the different countries and their specific rules. And I believe, yeah, Abijoy put it in the chat as well.
Awesome. Now, I actually have a question for you. So with Google Ad Grants, say I'm a smaller organization, I am a local shelter. How do I compete with larger organizations like ASPCA as they're using grants as well? How does that work?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one interesting nuance about the Google grant is that when the auction happens for the ads that appear in Google search, first paid ads will display. So anyone paying real money will show up first. And then there will be a secondary auction for the Google ad grant. And so if I'm a shelter and then there's other larger animal organizations, we're essentially competing for the other spots. One thing that's nice is that if I'm a local shelter, many of the keywords that I care about, like animal shelter near me, I'm probably going to be the only one advertising for. Large organizations probably aren't because they don't have a physical presence near me. The other component is that if I have a website that has really good conversions and really good conversion tracking, I will beat them, even though I'm much smaller, because we both have a level playing field. We both have the same $10,000, and if I can get people to click on my ads more often because they're so well written, and get them to take more action more often on my website because my website is so great, I will beat my much larger organizational peer, and that's awesome.
Thank you so much. That's such a great answer. You hear that, everybody? Have a great website. Make sure you're working on optimizing. And again, you have been given so many great tools here to help guide you as you do that. So yes, even if you are a small nonprofit, you can end up at the top of the page and really get those clicks and drive visitors to your cause. So that is great to know. Awesome. Well, I want to double check, make sure we've got everybody here. I believe we have. So before we end our Q&A, because we do have a few extra minutes, are there some frequently asked questions that you get, working at nonprofit Megaphone that we haven't had folks ask today? What are some good things that you've answered for your clients? Yeah,
I think... trying to think, we've covered a lot of them. A lot of people will think about how can I build a ongoing relationship with people that come to my website through the Google ads. And a really common and effective way to do that is through an email list. Most people probably have an email newsletter, and structuring something so that people come and maybe it's like a petition that they can sign, which involves putting in an email, or a form they can fill out, or something they can access where they're somehow providing you their email address. You can then use your newsletter to build a relationship with them over time. That's one of the things Kennel to Couch does. And then they can send people back to their donation pages or campaigns that they're doing through Donorbox, whatever their tool is. And that is a really nice way to not propose marriage on the first date. So you're not saying, hi, welcome to my nonprofit, would you like to donate? But hi, welcome to my nonprofit, would you like to learn more about what we're doing, build a relationship, and then allow people to support your work as they get more invested. So that's just one sort of helpful thing.
I think that's wonderful. It's all about relationship building. It starts from the very first moment they go onto your website. It's all about the experience and again, building that relationship. So thank you so much for that point. I think that's really important. Now, a silly question for me, one that just popped up in my head. Now, you say that not all organizations use the full 10K every month. Does that roll over into the following month if you have not used it?
It does not. It's okay. Use it or lose it. And many organizations, they can reach everyone they could possibly ever need to reach, and it only costs $4,000. But some organizations are leaving opportunity on the table. We actually did fun videos where we took out $10,000 in ones from the bank and like showed people what it looks like. And obviously it's credit, so they're not giving you physical dollars, but
Right.
It's interesting to think about, for every new piece of promotable content that you add to your website, you're unlocking, in effect, more money that can be deployed to market your organization, because now you have more ads, more keywords that you can target and be relevant to. So it does not roll over, and adding content sooner rather than later lets you use more of it.
That is good to know. Thank you for that. Let's see here. I'm scrolling through our chat. Oh, all right. I love this one. Maybe you can answer it. Why has Google been so generous? What is the catch?
Yeah, this is such a good question. This should have been a common one. So the Google Ad Grant was started by Sheryl Sandberg, who's now the COO of Facebook. She wrote Lean In. She's very famous. She used to work at Google, and it was really like a way to give back. I have had lots of conversations with Michelle, who's the head of the Google Ad Grants program. And the first question I asked her when we met in person in California a number of years ago was, does Google get a tax write-off for this? Like, that's brilliant. Like, that's so smart. And they don't, because it's not a tangible donation. They're giving up space on their own website, which is not a physical thing. So it's not a tax write-off. They're just doing it because they want to help nonprofits, which is very cool. They have a whole team of people who are paid by Google, who are responsible for making the program more effective, and Google does not make any money. And they're the nicest people. Like, you meet the people on the Google Ad Grants team, and they're like, the metric they wake up and think about every morning is like, how many conversions are nonprofits making through the program? Like, how much good is being done as a result of these ads? So it's very cool.
Thank you so much. I loved that question, and that is very insightful. Thank you. Another one from Dana. Let's see here. Do most nonprofits that receive the Google grants have a dedicated tech person for the ads?
It definitely makes sense to have someone dedicated, whether it's someone inside or outside the organization. In a small organization, sometimes it's the executive director, or in a perfect world, like a marketing person, marketing manager, marketing director. And yeah, it requires like knowledge and attention and thought and learning. And so it's great to have someone be dedicated. We'd recommend, wherever possible, not having it be run by an intern, just because internships start and then internships end, and that can lead to problems down the road if no one knows what to do with it.
That is great advice. Thank you. Now, another question from Patrick here. Is there an option to get free support from nonprofit Megaphone for the first 3 months?
I wish. We would be very happy if we could do that, and also we maybe wouldn't ever sleep. But so free consultation, great option. We try and produce lots of free resources like the guide, or doing webinars like this. Our business model is basically tell as many people about the Google Ad Grant as possible, because it's a fantastic resource, and do as much as we can to show people how to manage it themselves if they would like to. So resources like the guide. And for some organizations, them managing it themselves is a great option. For other organizations, they want it to be effective and they don't have the time or the manpower or the womanpower to deal with it. And so they ask us to manage it for them, and we do that. And that lets us, continue to give out free resources as well. So I wish we could, and sadly we can't.
Thank you for that. And again, Nonprofit Megaphone has so many wonderful resources on their website. They have done such a great job curating these materials for nonprofits. So be sure to check that out. And again, this guide is really going to help you, and you are able to sign up for that free consultation. So really take advantage of all of these wonderful things that Nonprofit Megaphone has to offer. Okay, we are rounding out almost to the top of the hour here. Let's see here. And can you share the free consult link again? Oh, Abijoy already did it behind the scenes. Thank you so much. Okay, one more from Terry. Can we use this grant for an online charity shop?
Yes. You can. That's another big question. Sorry, everyone's thinking of the questions that most people ask. So yes, there's a lot of confusion about, can you use the grant to promote things that generate revenue for the organization? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. As long as it's like revenue that's funding your mission, that's totally fine. We have a number of organizations that have fair trade online marketplaces that they promote very effectively with the Google grant, as long as it's on your website, so on your domain. You can absolutely promote that, and that's a great way to use it.
Wonderful. That was a great question. I put you on the spot. Everybody's doing a great job asking these questions. And okay, I'm going to share one more, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up the Q&A. But please stay on the session because we have some announcements here. Let's see. When you are working with clients, how do you think about balancing changing the website or adding content with sticking closely to the organization's mission? How do you maximize the traffic and anticipated searches without compromising your mission and putting content on your site that's not relevant?
This is a fantastic question. Thank you, Peter. One of the things, we were talking about this internally earlier this week. Sometimes organizations have a mission that a lot of people are searching for directly what it is. And it's just a question of adding more content that's directly into your sweet spot. Other organizations do not have as many people aware of the fact that they should care about what the organization does. And so we think about relevant adjacent content. So what is something that your target audience would search for that's related to what you do, even if it's not exactly what you do, with the idea that you then bring people to the website for the thing that they care about, and then you use that opportunity in your calls to action to share about what you're doing and how it's related and how it's maybe even more impactful than the thing that they think is impactful, and bring them on that journey. And that, like, understanding that and the value that having content that's adjacent to your mission is okay, is a massive key to unlocking a lot of power for the Google grant if your organization has a particularly niche mission.
That was a wonderful question and a great answer. Thank you so much for that question, Peter. And hi, I just realized it was you. It's so fun to see nonprofits that we know hopping onto this webinar. So thank you for attending today. And I believe we have hit most of the big questions here, which is awesome. So we are almost at the top of the hour. Now, if we somehow missed your question, please do not fret. Please hang on until the very last moment of this webinar because you will be redirected to our Donorbox knowledge community. Now, this is an awesome platform where you can post your questions about Google Ad Grants or really anything related to nonprofits, and we will make sure to answer them. And I'm going to go ahead and tag Grant in a post after this webinar, so everybody hop on, say thank you, ask your questions, and we will make sure that you are well informed and well taken care of. Now, a little bit more about the Donorbox knowledge community. Like I said, this is a great platform where you can ask questions, but you can also connect with nonprofit professionals just like you and get focused answers to your questions regarding board management, marketing, fundraising, grants, volunteer management, and so much more. So please hang on, get redirected, or click this button here that says become a member and utilize this awesome free resource. We cannot wait to see you there. Now, Grant, thank you again so much for sharing your knowledge with us. This has been a very informative presentation, and thank you for all the great work that you do to help nonprofits set this up and really expand their reach and make a bigger impact. This is such important work. And thank you, everybody, for the work that you're doing through your cause. And thank you for attending this webinar today. We are proud to provide the tools and resources you need to help you help others. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.